Hello everyone and welcome to Back Lot Banter, a new channel from your favorite BLB boys. This channel is exclusively for our movie content. It's brand new, so welcome. Because today we are your BLB boys. We're specializing, we're compartmentalizing, and most importantly today,
Yeah.
we're prognosticating. The
Ooh,
2020,
prognosticalizing.
the 2023
Woo!
Oscar nominees come out imminently, and we have to get our predictions in. I'm Tanner Dykstra. I'm joined by a classic BLB face, Tucker Hazel, and a not unfamiliar face to our fans, our true fans, who've been watching our recent movie reviews starring Tucker and Sam Meltzer. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Yeah. Hello,
Uh,
hello.
Before we get down to brass tacks, I'd invite you, of course, to subscribe to Back Lot Banter and Backlog Banter if you want to see video game stuff. But that's besides the point.
You don't want to
We're here for all your BLB movie loving needs. So ring that bell, like the video, subscribe, and also join the Discord server. That link is in the description. There, you can talk about all sorts of neat little movie things with us.
Might as well.
Might as well.
It's Oscar season. There's a lot to talk about, and we have a lot to talk about today because, believe it or not, there are a number of categories.
Yeah, we're gonna
in the
do.
Oscars, and we're here to predict all.
Yeah,
of
we're gonna
them.
do 20 categories, not the shorts, because.
Oh, not all
Yeah.
of them. I misspoke.
Yeah.
I said I meant the opposite of what I
Oh.
said, and that's what you're going to get from
I
me
see,
today.
I see.
I'm going to lie the entire time.
Okay, well, should we just kick it off here, folks? With we're going to talk about the big prize up top because, ironically, it's maybe one of the more predictable categories this year. Is that full 10 Best Picture nominees? Oh, and I should say that we're going to attempt to come to some sort of consensus here. So
We'll try our best.
yeah, we're gonna make a
We'll try.
one master list for our predictions.
But we are just going to go through everything that is possible, is likely, and then we're going to whittle it down. We're going to choose our things, and we're going to, hey, I'm better than you. Get out of the room, and then we'll come to a decision.
I think so.
That's usually how it works around this part.
So I want to start with our guest. And Sam, I just want you to give me your 10 Best Picture nominees.
All right.
And then
so
we
I
can
think
see where the points of difference are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the three of us are going to have 9 of the same. I think everyone kind of has 9 of the same, and it's the 10th slot that is tricky. So, obviously, Everything Everywhere and Banshees are in it to win it.
Yes.
I think Top Gun is, oddly enough, the 3rd place. That's, I don't know, it feels like it. I have
Sure.
Elvis for now, like weirdly also, but and then from here on, I would say Tar, The Fabelmans, All Quiet on the Western Front, The Whale are all getting in, and then Avatar I have 9th because I think it can get snubbed, but it probably won't.
Yeah.
I'm assuming both of you have all 9 of those films.
Yes,
predicted
I have
in the line.
no
Yes,
disagreements
absolutely.
thus far.
So when it comes to the 10th, it's kind of impossible to predict it because there's no real precursor consensus here. There's nothing that indicates that one movie has an overwhelmingly larger larger amount of support than others.
Yeah.
But because I want to hope dict just a little bit, because I think that I can see international voters voting for Triangle of Sadness here. And I'm putting that at 10 just because it's going to get screenplay. And I think it'll get Dolly DeLeon. If Dolly DeLeon doesn't get nominated, this isn't going to happen. It's a package deal. If it just gets original screenplay, then that's not going to happen. But I feel like both of those things are going to happen. So I'm putting Triangle of Sadness as my 10th. I don't see Women Talking or Babylon happening anymore. They both just feel like they've fallen off. And I mean, Black Panther, It feels like Triangle of Sadness makes the most sense, and it's also like the best of those options for me. So I'm just gonna put it there.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think that the consensus that we're going to come to as we're talking about all of these categories is that the top crust, and frankly most of the crust of these categories, are pretty predictable. It's like, yeah, okay, there's a strong 3 out of 5 for most categories, or for Best Picture, it's 9 out of 10. But it is that bottom slot that's really in flux for almost all of these categories. But I do think that for Best Picture, and I'm not going to disagree with you on any of those 9, because I have them in my 9 prediction as well, but I think that there is a strong chance. My prediction is these films that we talked about. But my prediction on top of that is that one of those is not going to make it, and there's going to somehow be a weird other thing that happens at the bottom, whether it's The Whale not making it and it being Women Talking or Babylon, or something like that happening. I think is very likely, because it feels too safe. It feels too certain this year. 9 out of 10 of the Best Picture nominees are locks. I don't think that's necessarily true, even though it feels that way because of the precursors.
Now, Tucker, that was a long roundabout way, and you didn't even give us what your number 10 is.
My number 10 is hope dicting in a different way, but I feel that Babylon is still possible. Babylon, for me, is the film that I watched, and I'm like, this, in terms of its production value and its themes about Hollywood, feels a lot like a Best Picture nominee, and in past years, possibly a winner. Of course, it is not in that conversation anymore. It's dropped out of a lot of the bigger awards it could have been nominated for, like Chazelle for director, like a screenplay, like a supporting actor or actress. But I still think in terms of its tech and the narrative of Damien Chazelle winning Best Picture a few years ago with La La Land, of course, not actually winning, that is a name that I think carries enough weight with it in the creativity and themes of Babylon that it feels like a, oh my god, I can't believe this made it into the 10th slot. But then when you look back at it in retrospect, also because I think that movie will gain popularity over the years, I feel like in retrospect, it would make a lot of sense for Babylon to slide into that 10th slot.
Yeah.
What you're saying here is...
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, this reminds me of the people who are saying that Babylon is this year's Nightmare Alley. And there are a few key differences. One, Nightmare Alley didn't have an actively negative critical reception. This feels like there are, outside of like Twitter, like nobody likes this movie. And other than that, nobody saw this movie. Yes, Nightmare Alley bombed, but this bombed so bad that it makes it look like that movie was the next Avatar. So this is not this is not even a moderate success in any way. Nobody saw this movie. Nobody cared. Margot Robbie's not happening. Brad Pitt might happen, but probably not. Diego Calva's not happening. Screenplay is definitely not happening. It's only relying on a few texts, like Nightmare Alley. And what Babylon really reminds me of is actually the first year where there were 10 nominees for 2009. A movie that was a huge contender all year was 9. And that movie got the same nominations that Babylon did. It got the Critics' Choice and Golden Globe for Best Picture, as well as the SAG Ensemble nod. And everyone just assumed it would be in because it had an all-star cast and had so many technical merits. And it was from a director of a musical that won, Chicago did win Best Picture, but La La Land didn't. But it's the same thing. And I feel like that movie had the same critical reception that Babylon does. And it also flopped at the box office. It's going to have a very similar path to that movie. And ultimately, I feel like the 10th slot wouldn't go to something like Babylon because nobody is putting that high on their ballots. I feel like that's like a 9, 10 at most. People don't like this movie. I heard about a press screening where everyone, like in the last hour, was itching to get out of their seats, kind of hungry. Nobody clapped at the end. Nobody really laughed throughout. I don't feel like it's going to get nominated. I mean, people comparing it to The Wolf of Wall Street, Boogie Nights, fine. But both of those movies had very positive critical reception, had very good box office runs. And I hate to say it, but Chazelle is not PTA. Chazelle is not Scorsese. And Chazelle is not Guillermo del Toro even. No. So the level at which this flopped is very interesting because for so long it was a top 5 contender. For so long, Margot Robbie was supposed to win. So it's interesting to see how much this kind of went down. But in the end, I don't think it's going to make the cut. I think it'll get around 3 or 4 nominations.
Tam, where do you come down on this? What's your 10?
Oh, I don't know, Sam. You just did a lot of convincing of me. That I'm looking at the Babylon record, which has Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, and SAG Ensemble. I'm like, that's pretty good. That's a solid thing to get in. But then you tell me about this film Nine, and I'm like, I got to think back on it. But what is in Triangle of Sadness's corner? I guess because this is the discussion around Best Picture. It is really between these two. So other than having a supporting actress and probably an original screenplay nomination, what is in Triangle of Sadness's corner here?
Yeah, well, I
No.
think what's interesting about those two nominees is those are late surges in terms of being possible for being nominated in both those categories. As well, when we get to supporting actress, I absolutely think that Dahlia DeLeon would be deserving of a nomination. I believe I have her predicted as we'll get down there. But that's also something that could easily not happen because supporting actress is a crazy category this year. And if Triangle of Sadness doesn't get supporting actress because supporting actress is a crazy category, okay, they go for Stephanie Hsu, they go for whoever it is, and not Dahlia DeLeon, Triangle suddenly loses everything. But Babylon is not very safe in many categories, but in terms of text, it is one of the most impressive films of the year. And a lot of these films that we have in our Best Picture lineup, they're getting one or two texts. Of course, there are a few that are sweeping those kind of things. Like All Quiet on the Western Front's going to have a bunch, and Top Gun and Avatar and Everything Everywhere. But when you get to those bottom slots, you're scrambling for other nominations. And Babylon, I think, has more potential nominations in tech categories than Triangle is safe, which is kind of safe, but in those two major categories that are putting it in that 10th slot. So it's really an influx thing to where even honestly, Triangle of Sadness could only get one, and still maybe that's more important for Best Picture than all of the text that Babylon might get. But we really don't know, and I think that's why it's a little bit more shifty for me, where I land on Babylon's side because of what? Because of what? Because of vibes, because I like that movie, because of Damien Chazelle, because of La La Land, who knows? But I think that it's not as clear-cut as you're making it, though I do think the 9 comparison is pretty apt.
I mean, usually there's 2 screenplay or director nominees that don't get into picture. Usually in these big lineups of 10, there are 2 nominees that don't get any of that, don't get any major nominations and still get in. And last year, it was Nightmare Alley, and that might have been it. It was Nightmare Alley and something else.
I can't remember. We'll think about that later. But
we'll think about that later. But this year we already have 2, and it's Elvis and Top Gun. I don't think either of those will get any directing or writing nominees.
Yeah.
But I don't see
and
them,
Avatar.
and Avatar. I don't see it being like 3 or 4 movies like that. I feel like something has to happen. And the thing with Babylon is that you'd expect the Hollywood audience to nominate this. But they don't like it, and they didn't see it. And where I'm relying here on Triangle of Sadness is that the international branch is going to love this movie. Triangle of Sadness has made more money than Babylon, by the way. So I think it's clear that, I think it's clear that international voters who are of the actors branch, they're going to be putting Dahlia DeLeon very high on there, and the writers who are of the international branches, they're going to put Triangle of Sadness very high on there. I just feel like this is a movie that's really hilarious and astonishing, but it also does have like a hierarchical theme, and it has a clear like satire message to it, whereas Babylon has so many themes all at once, and not a lot of people can take one thing away from it.
That's the Best Picture for that.
Yeah. Well,
you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna
have more focus.
If we're gonna come down on a consensus here, I'm gonna go Triangle of Sadness at number 10.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely absolutely the safer pick. But again, I feel that this lineup feels too safe. Okay. And I'm even with Triangle of Sadness being like the safer number 10 pick, I'm like, the Academy is pretty safe on the whole, but there's still these bottom slots in all of these categories that are in flux. And we are used to watching those nominations last year and be like, oh, I guess Being the Ricardos is probably in that bottom slot. And they're like, okay, what? Nightmare Alley made it into Best Picture? This happens in almost all these categories, especially since they've expanded outward, and it's going to apply to a lot of the other categories. But the craziest thing about this year is watching this category fill up and be like, okay, yeah, we've got, beginning this season, we've got 5 or 6 that are pretty good locks for Best Picture. Okay, now it's 7, now it's 8, and then boom, 8 and 9 fill up with The Whale and All Quiet, and then 10 suddenly has this like giant hodgepodge of possible movies. including Women Talking, which is getting snubbed in multiple places, including honestly, what else is in that conversation? You guys say Black Panther.
Yeah,
Black got
RRR in
PGA.
a way.
Yeah,
Glass
it's
Onion.
really really interesting. Oh, Glass Onion, true. Yeah.
It just, the first one had the same exact performance throughout the award season, and I feel like it's going to be the same thing. But that movie got no BAFTA nominations, no SAG nominations. Not only is that the most
SAG ensemble missing
movie
is pretty big.
but and also like SAG is so friendly with Netflix and shit, and they didn't even nominate it for anything. So that that is very telling to me that this is the type of movie that, sure, it's a satire. What's the message? What are people taking away from it other than that was so much fun? Nothing. So ultimately, it's not going to get in.
Yeah. So I think we're settling on here a Triangle of Sadness at number 10 with a Babylon at like a number 11 as the next possibility, and then like Women Talking at 12 maybe.
Sure. Yeah. In the hypothetical 12 slot Best Picture race.
I'm just like ranking the rest of those in terms of likelihood. You know. Yeah.
I'd throw Living in the top 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with possible writing, as we'll get to, and pretty safe Best Actor, that's a better lineup than most of these movies we're talking about, so who the hell knows? Yeah. But that is one that is absolutely nowhere in terms of precursor for Best Picture or Ensemble or any of those top awards, which makes it, like, iffy. But if you're thinking about it in terms of nominations, like we're talking about with Triangle of Sadness and Babylon, it's on the same level, if not higher, than both of those, which is wild. But also, there are plenty of movies all across Oscars history that are successful in plenty of other higher categories, and just they don't show up in Best Picture. And we have to predict the unpredictable in that way of like that will happen this year because it happens every year. We just don't know which movie that's going to apply to.
Okay, we have to move on. Let's move on to Best Lead Actress.
Okay, all right.
Now, I think an important question here is who do we all have at number 1?
Predicting to win, or just in safety?
Predicting to win.
I think we have to wait.
Yeah,
but
I also don't necessarily want to do predicting to win yet because I would rather see the winners of BAFTA. I'd rather see the winners of SAG before we end up getting predictions
here's the thing.
To happen.
We all have the same 1 and 2. I'm just looking for who do you think is more secure in that category?
They're both equally secure.
I know. Okay.
We're one of them.
Who are your 1 and 2? So, give them to me.
Michelle Yeoh and Cate Blanchett. We're not stupid.
Okay, but I just have them in an order here, but we don't have to do that.
No, I don't think we should put them in an order. I mean, we lightly did for Best Picture because I think that narrative is a lot more clear. But for these other categories, they are very much in flux. And Best Actress has basically a 2-horse race at the top. And that's very clear, but I think what becomes even more interesting is that now we've got a 2-horse race and then like a 7-horse race for those last 3 slots.
Okay. Well, I guess we should say then the list that you're seeing on screen right now of all the of our predictions is not necessarily in an order of most secure to least secure.
No.
Okay.
But I think there's no way that either Cate Blanchett or Michelle Yeoh misses. Like, there's no way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. We shouldn't even entertain this notion. Let's move on to the other presumed nominees here. I have Danielle Deadwyler, naturally. I think she's probably pretty safe in there. I have Viola Davis, who is one that I wasn't really like realizing was in this category until a week or so ago. I'm like, oh, Viola Davis has gotten BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and SAG. Oh, she's just in. Okay. Yeah. That is one more than my number 5, Ana de Armas, which is another one that nobody expected, I would say, up until quite recently. Getting a BAFTA, Golden Globe, and SAG nomination. Just picking these things up week after week, essentially.
Like candy.
Yeah. I have to say...
Any disagreement there? You have the same ones?
Because that was SAG and BAFTA. They all 5 of those happened at SAG and BAFTA. And the thing about Michelle Williams is that apparently Academy voters are being told that you can put her in supporting. But that narrative happened so late that there's going to be people putting her in supporting and people putting her in lead, which clearly in the lead category, SAG, she missed SAG, which was, I thought, so sure that I was so sure that she was going to get in there. She's not getting number one votes. No one is going. I think Michelle Williams.
No, of course not.
0 people think that. So the issue is, because of that, she's not going to get nominated. I think there's going to be a vote cancel between the two categories, and the fact that she doesn't have any passion at all means that she's going to miss. I think there are people who are definitely likelier than her.
Yeah.
Such as...
Yeah, it's interesting because...
Andrea Riseborough.
Such as Ana de Armas for Blonde.
Right?
Or Andrea Riseborough, which we will talk about in a second.
Okay.
But first, I want to... So my thoughts on Michelle Williams, who I have at my number 5 slot, are basically the same as what I was talking about with that bottom slot for Best Pictures. I do think that you need to accommodate some kind of weirdness for who the Oscars choose versus the other big precursor awards. Yes, that is the SAG and BAFTA lineups, but do they ever go 1 for 1, 5 for 5 with those awards? Almost never, if ever. And so I do think that Michelle Williams, in terms of, for a lot of this award season, or, a little bit before it, the narrative was she was supporting, okay, now she's being campaigned in lead. People do really like The Fabelmans, and I do think that it getting into Best Picture and being up in there for winning director at Globes, people are obviously watching that movie, and I do think that Michelle Williams being a name that has for a while deserved a Best Actress nomination, that puts her pretty high up there, and I feel like for that weird 5th slot that is not the same as the other categories, she's the one that makes most sense for me, especially because as everyone has talked about and as we've talked about off camera, Blonde is so weird, and Ana de Armas is getting a lot of nominations, but I do think that there is a line in the sand, and I think that is the Oscars, and Ana de Armas not getting in there.
I would really, really, really love that if that happened. I would every time there's been a nominations, I go down on my knees and I pray that she misses, but she just keeps getting it, and that tells me like, holy shit, like this is like she's so strong that she's transcending not only a horrible movie that has terrible reviews, but also NC-17 rating.
True.
Nobody has ever been nominated for an Oscar for an NC-17 performance, and the fact that she's already gotten this far, she's like the new face. I think she'll get in. I really hope not, but I think at this point in time, like SAG and BAFTA have never matched up 5 for 5 aside from 2006, at least in Best Actress, and those 5 in 2006 all got nominated. So I feel like this is just it. Michelle Williams, obviously, still a possibility. She could take out any of these few 3. But ultimately, I feel like nobody wants that performance to get nominated. Did you also see what she said about it? About her campaign?
About Best Actress?
Yeah,
no, I don't think I did.
She was asked, why did you move from supporting to lead? And she said, I actually haven't seen the film yet. It just made sense to me.
Interesting. Okay.
All right.
Huh. Well, do you think that comment has circulated enough to like have an impact? Okay.
No, I just think
that is very peculiar.
It's just the general malaise that she seems to have for like whether she should be in either category. But do we want to entertain the Andrea Riseborough conversation?
Well, we might as well. This is going to sort of act as a snapshot. It's our first video on this channel. It's a snapshot of what the Oscars race was like 2 days before it was revealed. And I do think that is a strong part of the last 2 weeks, but obviously not to any of us strong enough to crack into our actual top 5 predictions. Just a funny side note in the next Oscars history book of this happened and that was weird.
I guess I would agree because we're not in the business of unless Tucker is in the business of trying to predict the unpredictable here.
That's my job.
But it just seems too strange, right? Too off, too odd, too weird that this would happen.
Yeah,
I mean,
we've got the professional.
That's true. We do.
Analyzer of the two Leslie Renaissance. Sam, what are your thoughts on this?
So I actually said. And y'all have the receipts. I said a couple weeks ago, before everyone started talking about it, that Andrea Riseborough could get nominated. And people laughed at me. And then, like, literally 3 days later, I check my Twitter page and I see Andrea Riseborough trending. And I'm like...
Yeah.
And now
It
I
happened.
feel like after learning a stat that in order to get nominated, you need like over 200 number one votes for that to something like this to happen. And I just don't
Yeah.
think it'll be enough. I think had her campaign started a little earlier, maybe, but who knows
Yeah.
if these people are actually voting? Who knows if these people who are voting are actually putting her at number one? We don't really know this. Nobody saw the movie. Nobody really knows the movie. It would just be kind of I would kind of want to see it happen just so that Twitter can shut the fuck up about statistics in this race because that isn't what matters. But ultimately, I don't think it'll happen.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, God, can you imagine? We're sitting there on Oscars morning, and that happens. Everyone will lose their shit. But I also think that there is then a conversation of, if she doesn't make it, about how does this happen? Does this online influence matter? Does her like grassroots campaign of like possibly blackmailing people? Of course, that we're not saying that actually happened, but like getting on the ground and like putting money in people's pockets and say, hey, write an Instagram post about me, Andrea Riseborough, true crime documentary coming in 2 years. But I think that her being in this like weird bottom slot is just one of the more interesting things about this modern iteration of what the Oscars are. Someone can do that and use social media to a strong enough degree to where people are genuinely entertaining this. It's something that would have never even thought of being possible in the past. Of someone just saying like, hey, my friends, tell people you like me in this movie enough to get me nominated. No, that's probably not going to happen, but it really is interesting.
All right. Well, it sounds like between Sam and I that we're putting Ana de Armas in our 5 and not Michelle Williams. But
totally fine. I'm safe to be the dissenter.
yeah.
Because I'll be right.
Actor. Now on to Best Actor, and I'll run it down here again, and then we can discuss the one slot. Let's be real, the one slot at the bottom that's in flux.
Yeah.
Noticing a trend?
Brendan Fraser, Austin Butler, Colin Farrell, Bill Nighy, and I have Paul Mescal.
I do.
And
too.
I know that Tom Cruise he's hunting down that 6th spot potentially.
Stop trying to make Tom Cruise happen. It's not going to happen. People keep trying to predict him. They said he's going to get Globe. Nope. He's going to get SAG. Everyone really thought he was getting SAG. Nope. He's going to get BAFTA. Nope. Nope. It's not. Nobody wants this. He's getting a producer credit for the Best Picture nomination. That's where the Oscar nomination lies. Nobody wants this performance to get nominated, and everybody thinks they're so cute by predicting it. But nope, it's not going to happen. I think people are looking too broadly into this. But if you are, then you'd look at SAG and you'd see that Adam Sandler got it over him for Hustle.
Yeah, he needed SAG, I would say, especially when it comes to the acting branch.
And SAG is the king of populist picks. So Paul Mescal has the most precursor nominations outside of these 4. He's also being cast in every movie ever right now. He's the boy. Yes. Everybody wants to work with him.
It's the It Boy versus the goddamn dinosaur of Hollywood, you know?
Exactly.
True.
And I feel like the Oscars come through on this sort of thing. Like last year with Penelope Cruz, they did it. So I really am not convinced by anyone besides Paul Mescal. Weirdly, I can see Jeremy Pope happening instead of Tom Cruise. Yeah. Because of the Ryan Murphy shout out at the Globes, because of the fact that performance is genuinely very Oscar friendly, and that he'd be completing his EGOT nominees. There's more there to me than Tom Cruise even. That's a bit of a stretch, fine. Yeah. But Paul Mescal makes sense to me. It's also the most acclaimed film of the year, which is interesting. And usually that gets some sort of nomination. And because the BAFTAs showed us that it's clearly not strong in Best Picture, it's also the type of movie that you really need to watch more than once to fully understand. It's very subtle in a lot of what it's saying and a lot of the direction. But in the end, I think Paul Mescal gives an emotionally interesting performance that enough international voters will put it at number 1. Enough of like the high end voters would be like the smart ones. They'll put him in.
I think another thing that BAFTA showed us was that Paul Mescal can happen for After Sun without it showing up anywhere else at an awards show.
True. Yeah. I think what's interesting about the Tom Cruise thing is the reason that I never really even entertained that is I'm thinking a little about Tom Cruise and what his place and what he's showing himself to be in the industry currently. He is bringing back big budget, stunt focused productions, and they're doing exceptionally well. Top Gun Maverick, one of the highest grossing, highest rated movies of the year. Both Tanner and I love it. It's amazing. I'm so happy that it's making it into this awards conversation. But I don't think that Tom Cruise is selling himself as a performance actor, as being deserving of being nominated at these categories, at these different award shows, which is obviously true. He's not getting nominated anywhere. If there was a stunts category, like best guy doing stunts, absolutely put him in there. He's committing himself to that aspect of his craft, not the performance side of his craft. And because he's a producer on these movies, he's selling himself as a producer of these stunt-focused, crazy, returning to form action movies. I don't think he really cares about the Best Actor award, because he could have been doing that from the beginning. I mean, if you imagine a different and slightly altered universe where Top Gun Maverick's campaign options are him on the ground saying, I made one of the biggest moves of the year, I should be in Best Actor, well, kind of like Jamie Lee Curtis, as we will get to, did for herself with Everything Ever All at Once, I'd say absolutely, he could be in this. But he wasn't doing that. He was selling the movie, he was selling the stunts, he was selling his craft, he was promoting Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 in theaters this summer. And that's it, and not his performance. So I think that, like, you're absolutely right about people just be, like, pulling it out of their ass, because where that narrative isn't even within himself.
Yeah. So it sounds like we all have Paul Mescal in our 5? Okay.
Yeah, I do as well.
Happy to hear it.
I think it's interesting about the Tom Cruise thing. It's like, people are saying, oh, but he'll go along with the movie. I mean, the movie's obviously locked for Best Picture. Paul Mescal, it's just too much of a long shot. It would be the only nomination. Okay, why didn't Timothée Chalamet in Dune last year get nominated? Why didn't Leonardo DiCaprio in Don't Look Up miss? I mean, you're pulling shit out of your ass. You're not predicting intelligently here.
Okay, now we mentioned Jamie Lee, so let's move on over to her category. Not saying that she's gonna win, but in her category, supporting actress, I have Angela Bassett, Carrie Condon, Jamie Lee Curtis, Hong Chow, and Dolly DeLeon.
Same.
Those are my 5 as well.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. No dissenting
Here's
conversation.
why I think this is going to happen.
Okay.
I think The Whale is surging at the perfect time, and I don't think it'll miss Best Picture. Tucker was saying something big could miss. I think Avatar is way more likely to miss than The Whale.
Wow, that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy.
That can't happen, though, because then Abram Buner would be right, and we can't be having that.
Yeah, no, that would not be possible. Oh, God, we can't entertain that idea here. Strike that from the record, viewers. Don't let that influence your opinions.
So, to me, it goes down to that 5th slot, unless they pull a random Carey Mulligan, which I'll throw my computer out the window for.
Jesus Christ. That'd be
unless
crazy.
they pull that out.
It's not impossible. She got BAFTA, which is important. It was big.
I would hate that so much, because it would be over one of these two ladies, and that would be atrocious. So,
true.
I'm thinking Dolly DeLeon or Stephanie Hsu. Obviously, Stephanie Hsu is in a movie that's going to get far more nominations. It is a front runner for Best Picture. It's everyone's favorite movie of the year. However, I feel like this is the type of performance that never gets nominated for the Oscar. There are no comparisons to make this to, and it feels like
with Stephanie Hsu, you mean?
A Twitter thing. Yeah. And ultimately, like, it's not... It never made sense to me. I'd love it to happen. The SAG nomination shows that she has a broad support, that SAG really loved Everything Everywhere. People really love Everything Everywhere. It's just SAG does not have a lot of international voters. And Dolly DeLeon's performance in this movie, it feels like a nominee because her character is sort of defying a social hierarchy. Her character is sort of discussing issues with poverty and power and class in a really...
Well, Jobu Tupaki is subverting the expectations of the universe.
Whoa!
Exactly. And it's just...
That's even bigger than society.
She's hilarious. Everyone agrees. Even people who hate this movie think she's amazing. Literally, anyone who watches this movie thinks she's amazing. And it's because she is. Yeah. It's because she I mean, I think she should win this category. It would be so weird for her to make it this far and not get in. I don't see her missing the nomination. I mean, I do see her missing the nomination, but in terms of that fifth slot, it would just make so much sense, and I would scream. It would be beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it, but I think, or you mentioned it, Sam, rather, that Carey Mulligan is like that would be the spoiler one that could come in here, because she's got the same she's got BAFTA Golden Globe, excuse me. Carey Mulligan does, whereas Dolly DeLeon does have that SAG nom.
No, she has BAFTA.
Yeah, I think.
No, Dolly DeLeon has both, doesn't she?
No. Dolly DeLeon and Carey Mulligan have Critics' Choice. I mean, Dolly DeLeon and Carey Mulligan have Golden Globe BAFTA. Stephanie Sue has Critics' Choice SAG. So
okay,
interesting.
Okay,
they would all be getting 3 if they got in.
Sure.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting, and I think at the bottom of the bubble is kind of where I'm not actually predicting one of my weird things like I have in these other categories, but I do think there's a very... I think it's likely that this 5 is actually 4 when it comes to that morning, and it is... that I think you said, Sam, that's actually being announced first, and I think that if we see Stephanie Shu in there, that means that Everything Everywhere All at Once will also probably overperform in other tech categories where it's making it some places, maybe not making it in others. But I think that will be a really strong sign. It really depends on how much Academy voters are actually leaning into Everything Everywhere All at Once, which we can't really predict because, of course, it's going to be in some places, but it already has a supporting actress nominee pretty much locked, and Jamie Lee Curtis is aside from Angela Bassett, the veteran in this category. She's the actress that's been around for a long time. This is kind of like one of her first in a long time awards possible.
Well, she spoke this into existence, essentially. Yeah,
she absolutely did.
She's the reason why this is happening. Only her. She said, "I'm not going to play coy. I want to get nominated," and everyone's just like, "Okay." Nobody questioned it.
What did you say, Miss Lee?
I feel like people on Twitter, because I've seen a lot these past few days of people saying Jamie Lee Curtis is going to be the big snub. You just want that to happen. You know damn well that that's not going to happen. You just want it to. So I think she's like absolutely getting nominated. It's just a question of, is Everything Everywhere going to get 2 slots? It's definitely getting 1 spot here. But are they going to go with the real underdog and say Dolly DeLeon gets nominated?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like we have a 5 there, and a couple spoilers down below, hanging out in the wings, the shadows. Let's move on over to supporting actor. And I want someone else to give me their 5 this time. Sam, give me your 5.
So I think we can all agree that Ke Huy Quan, Brendan Gleeson, and Barry Keoghan are in. But beyond, this is actually, for me, weirdly, the toughest acting category to predict the nominations for.
Sure.
Because Ke Huy Quan is so obviously going to win, and Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan are like Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz, the favorite. They just get in everywhere. Like, everybody wants them both. Yeah. Where it gets tricky is both 4 and 5, because I really have no idea where this is going to go. Paul Dano has had buzz. He's never been nominated for an Oscar. He's had buzz in the past for movies that were bigger contenders than The Fabelmans, and he's still missed.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't nominate him for The Little Miss Sunshine or There Will Be Blood. He got precursor nominations for Love and Mercy. He didn't get nominated. And his performance in this movie is kind of easy to, like, take for granted, or you can put it to the side. It's not showy. It has an emotional ending, and he has the narrative. But nobody's putting this at number 1. So I'm really conflicted what to do with him. And for so long, I thought that Eddie Redmayne in The Good Nurse would be the weird SAG thing, like Ben Affleck in The Tender Bar last year, or Jared Leto in The Little Things a couple years ago. But Eddie Redmayne did more than what both of those people could do, and that was get into the BAFTA lineup. And
over other British faves like Ben Whishaw didn't show up in BAFTA. British faves, so I don't know.
Emmy winner Ben Whishaw. So what I'm going to do here, I also think Brad Pitt could weirdly get in despite Babylon not having anywhere, because if you saw the Globes, everyone was like, "Oh my God, we love you, Brad Pitt!" Like,
he's Brad Pitt. The Academy loves him.
We're like, fawning over him on stage. And
It's true.
the Academy loves him. The industry loves him. The whole controversies with Angelina and the struggles, all of that, that's solely seen as like personal life. Like that isn't seen as like an issue that transcends into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I think he might get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are those your 4 and 5
predictions?
What if it's Albert Shush?
I don't know. Here's the thing. BAFTA clearly loves All Quiet on the Western Front, and I don't doubt that the Academy. Sure. I don't doubt that the Academy will also show it lots of love this year, but I don't know if it's going to go that far as it did at the BAFTAs. At 14 categories at BAFTA is insane. It's really unheard of. It's a very impressive track record.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the Academy is going to do the same thing just because it's a different animal.
Mm-hmm. So my 2 picks are Eddie Redmayne, who I think is probably for me the 4.
Yeah.
I think he almost to me feels like the weird one at the bottom, but he actually isn't. He actually is getting the precursors, and it's not like a random thing to pull out their ass. But The Good Nurse, I see so clearly in my mind as this one weird nominee that has one nomination that sits at the bottom of the list whenever anyone's talking about nominees from this year, and it just gets forgotten about for all time, but it did get an Oscar nomination. And so Eddie Redmayne, especially as someone who's shown up multiple times at the Oscars, I feel like he's a pretty clear number 4 for me, and I'm putting Paul Dano at number 5. I don't know why. This is his time to shine, I guess. He is such an acclaimed actor, and this isn't one of my favorite performances of his, but he is one of the great parts of that movie, which is a movie I like a lot. And I just feel like this is totally vibes. This is totally pulling it out of my ass. Paul Dano for number 5.
Tucker, I'm also putting Paul Dano at number 5, and I know that we talked about how much the Academy loves Brad Pitt, and he's a previous winner, sure, yeah, and Paul Dano hasn't won anything. But I also think that I don't know, Brad Pitt, as powerful as a star is, maybe could be going down with the ship with Babylon here.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, though, I think the Academy might be like, we gave him one for a much better performance in a much better movie that we liked a lot more. So why here again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it makes the most sense out of like the possible major nominations that Babylon has. I'm gonna put him at 5, but like if as a group we're putting Paul Dano, like sure, like that seems easy. It just weirdly on Gold Derby, Barry Keoghan is below Paul Dano, which doesn't make like what?
Wow,
that's so not true.
They're not reading the literature here. Other ones that I want to quickly discuss: Judd Hirsch. Maybe the Academy showing him some love. That
would really be Judi Dench.
It would.
Not even because Judi Dench is an 8-time nominee and a winner.
Judd Hirsch is a one-time winner. Yeah.
What?
One-time winner, right?
One-time winner, 8-time nominee, and like people fucking love Judi Dench, like Dame Judi Dench, huge name. Belfast was everywhere. Like Judd Hirsch has one scene in the middle of the movie. Like if that was like the final scene or something, like maybe. But nobody cares. Nobody thinks that's no one's putting that in the top.
And the other possibility I have is Brian Tyree Henry as a possible spoiler.
Yeah, I'd love that. Oh man, I'd love that.
It definitely is, and he's the version of what we were talking about with Paul Mescal and Jeremy Pope for actor of just indie movie, great performance, rising star that he just slips in
Another
there.
A24 movie. Because all three of those are.
That is really interesting. And I think that is absolutely possible as like a surprise. Oh my god, I can't believe that happened. And I love just like exploding my mind out into like possible futures. And I just see this nomination, if it's possible for Brian Tyree Henry, like really exploding his potential for more supporting and lead nominations in the future. Because I do think he is one of our quickly up and coming like fastest quality actors, and I would really love that. He's the only thing I really care about from that movie, and it just goes to show like how strong that performance is and how good of a performer he really is.
This would be purely based on how good he is, because they aren't doing much campaigning.
Absolutely.
Jennifer Lawrence is too muted in that movie to get nominated. So this really would be a passion pick. I mean, that would be interesting. I would love for him to get nominated. If I were choosing the nominees, he would be like number 2 on my ballot. Like, I would absolutely nominate him. But
well, all the Academy voters just saw that new Apple TV Plus ad with Timothée Chalamet, and they're like, "Oh, Causeway did come out."
after the voting ended.
After the voting ended, of course. Oh man, I should have put Brian Tyree Henry down. Can we go in and change it? No. Let's go over to director now, since it seems like we're putting Paul Dano at 5. We're doing that.
Yes.
Sure.
Tucker, give me your directing 5.
Okay, director is one that I think has a bigger consistent bubble than people are realizing, because there is a few that are kind of hard to doubt, but there's like, I'd say almost 3 slots that are like in flux for who the hell knows what's going to happen. I do think that for me, Martin McDonagh, Daniel, Spielberg, and Field are the more obvious ones. I think if you had told me 2 months ago that James Cameron wouldn't be making director, I would tell you you're an idiot, but I think it's quickly becoming more and more possible. But I also think he's easily on the bubble for making it in, for if the Academy really respects Avatar: The Way of Water more than other precursors have been. But I've got those 4, and I've got Edward Berger, because guess what? They like doing a 5th slot person from another international feature director. They've done that for the last few years, and I don't think that's going to be an exception. And All Quiet on the Western Front is the biggest explosion of this award season, coming basically out of a couple maybe noms at the beginning of the season, and boom, 14, knocking everything on its ass for the BAFTAs. And Park Chan-wook, who I guess earlier in the season I would have said might have been that international pick. I'm sorry, decision to leave, but you're nowhere at the Oscars in this conversation. And Edward Berger, even a name that we don't recognize, I think it's certainly possible for director.
You say where you can't put Park Chan-wook in front of the man who put him in his 5 in his Gold Derby predictions. Sam.
True.
Rebuttal. I feel like I'm moderating a debate here.
Listen, this was me going, I like to push buttons. I'm bored. But listen to me. If the director's branch sees Decision to Leave, like, oh my god, he's going to get nominated. It's just a question of whether they see that movie or not. But if they do, then oh my god, he's going to get in, because
do they have movie?
That's the most directed movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, how would you watch that and not put him on your ballot? It's crazy to me. So weirdly, I think the Daniels are the biggest lock. I think Todd Field is probably number 2, because
very interesting.
That's very much like an auteur. Yeah, I think he's higher than
over Martin McDonagh
else, because oh my god, yeah, I think McDonagh could miss. McDonagh got nominated everywhere for 3 Billboards also, and missed the Oscar nomination for Paul Thomas Anderson for Phantom Thread, which was a movie that didn't get Best Picture anywhere. So Tar, I was rewatching it yesterday, and the fact that Todd Field has already been nominated for 3 Oscars, had 2 movies in the 2000s that missed director, but still got a bunch of major nominations, including Best Actress and Screenplay, which Tar is going to obviously get. I feel like Todd Field is just like, welcome to the club. You made the thing about his other 2 movies is that they weren't as visually interesting as other domestic dramas, but Tar is. It has that quality as well as the visual style. So he's absolutely getting in. I have no doubt about this. I used to think he was getting stumped, but then DGA nominated him. So people really like Tar. I'm putting Edward Berger at 3 for the same reason why I put Ryusuke Hamaguchi at 2 last year. I was talking to
wow, that was a crazy pull.
And
good
look,
work on that.
Look how it paid off. Last year,
yeah,
I said, who could get snubbed? Because I really, for weeks and weeks, thought Kenneth Branagh was not going to get nominated. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. The director's bench can't do this because of like Aaron Sorkin in Trial the year before. That didn't end up happening. So what I did was we were saying, I was talking to my friend the night before, and I said, Denis Villeneuve can get snubbed, and he said absolutely. So we both put him at 5, but I so regret putting him at 5 because I kind of saw that snub coming where nobody else did. And I want to change that this year because weirdly, I feel like the snub is either going to be Martin McDonagh or Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as crazy as that is, I am going to take out Steven Spielberg. And it's because of Ben Affleck and Argo. It's because of that. That's what's driving me to do this.
Oh, are you? I just don't buy this Steven Spielberg missing at the Academy Awards. I just don't buy it. Yeah.
What I don't buy is the comparison to Argo, because Ben Affleck is not the director
He's not
that
Steven
Steven Spielberg
Okay,
is.
then-
And unfortunately, I think the narrative of direction when it comes to the Fabelmans is that this is the most personal story that one of the biggest filmmakers of all time has ever told. Fabelmans is losing momentum in most of its categories, but in terms of it being a story told by possibly the greatest filmmaker of all time, and it being a story of his own life, it is a very directed and personal vision in that way. And so I still have him up there because I don't think that if people are watching this and they know who Steven Spielberg is, because guess what? They do. They're the Academy. He's been nominated constantly for longer than almost anyone else has. And they know the narrative around it. There's no way they don't put him at like 2 or 3 for Best Director.
Yes, and you're kind of convincing me that I should probably just take out McDonagh if I want to put Park Chan-wook in.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is important to note that The Color Purple got 11 Oscar nominations, and he didn't get a Best Director nomination. Bridge of Spies got...
But that also wasn't a movie about his life.
Yeah, it was also what,
1985. But still.
85? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Steven Spielberg is a bit more famous and well renowned in Hollywood than he was then.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like Bridge of Spies got 10 BAFTA nominations. 10, and he didn't even get in. And like that movie was a big contender. I feel like he's more vulnerable than we think, but like the narrative that he had to win for so long makes me probably put him back in. But if I do that, I'm being stubborn as fuck, and I'm gonna keep in Park Chan-wook because I have held on to that since I knew what that movie was, and I can't just let go of it at the final second. I'd rather predict him and him not get in than me not predict him and him get in, because it would just make me look so stupid. After having thought about this for so long and just giving up, because to me, Daniels, Field, and Berger are like absolutely getting nominated. If All Quiet on the Western Front got, if you look at the BAFTAs these last few years, because it's been weird, if you look at the BAFTAs and you look at screenplay and director, it's both that gets into the surprise director nomination. Like Cold War got the BAFTA nomination, and that ended up happening over Bradley Cooper in A Star Is Born, who everyone thought was a lock. Yeah. And then Another Round got the same thing, and Drive My Car. And All Quiet on the Western Front is that. Maybe I'm just pulling a stretch with the Park Chan-wook nomination, but like Thomas Vinterberg and like Paweł Pawlikowski, Park Chan-wook is a name. And surely the directors know who that is. Surely they've seen his movie. He is one of the best directors ever. He should have 5+ nominations at this point. And Decision to Leave has such interesting use of framing, and there are scenes in that movie that take place in a police station where I don't understand how they got certain shots. And again, it's all up to whether or not they saw the movie.
Great movie.
Because if they didn't, then he's not going to get in. But if they did, then oh my god, he's going to get in.
Yeah, I think the interesting sort of a name that none of us are talking about here, but I do think is more likely as that popping into the 5th slot for the Oscars, is James Cameron. If you're talking about a person with a creative vision that is a name not only for Academy voters but for in the industry and populism, James Cameron is that guy, and he has almost as compelling of a narrative as Steven Spielberg or Todd Field. He actually kind of a combination of, he's just as respected and successful as Steven Spielberg in terms of the movies he's made, but he's also not done a movie for almost just as long as Todd Field hasn't made a movie which he was nominated for, and which was nominated for Best Picture, and yada yada yada. James Cameron returning with Avatar: The Way of Water, and it being the movie that everyone saw. You want to talk about people maybe not saying Decision to Leave? Guess what? Everyone saw Avatar: The Way of Water, and they know James Cameron, and they know this is a personal vision for him, and it is one of the most impressively grand directed personal visions I've ever seen on film. And I do think that I might change my list to honestly, I could even replace Edward Berger with him, because I think that the name recognition of James Cameron alone and the success of Avatar: The Way of Water might, at least in my mind, outweigh the groundswell that All Quiet on the Western Front has had. That movie can get in everywhere, and I see in terms of nominations, and I can still see Berger missing. But Cameron, I think, with Avatar: The Way of Water being as strong critically and financially as it is, and him being the name that he is of winning Best Picture and having most of the successful movies of all time, I think I'm going to put him in my 5, to be honest.
I love your passion for this, but Inception didn't get a director nomination. The Martian didn't get a director nomination. Jaws didn't get a director nomination.
Those weren't top 10 most successful movies of all time. And they also didn't have as huge of a gap. I think that is the thing that's really selling me on this, is James Cameron hasn't made a movie for most of our entire lifetimes, and he comes back and people are like, is it really, is Avatar really is it gonna recapture that magic? Guess what? Guess what? Yes, it is. And now Avatar's probably one of the biggest franchises of all time. And I can see him in these movies continuing to show up as they continue to come out. And this is really the spark for that, of returning it to the cultural consciousness. And that's entirely James Cameron's vision of, yeah, no, I'm dedicating my life to this. If he successfully makes 5 of these fucking movies, it's going to be the most impressive directing achievement maybe in
Here's the thing, though,
history.
Tucker. Here's where I'm going to cut you off there. Because I think that, you know what? The Academy could show a ton of love to Avatar. Maybe they're the ones that, and the BAFTAs are being snooty about this massive American blockbuster. But, at the same time, I think we have to consider that the Academy voters could be looking at James Cameron making Avatar: The Way of Water and also promising 3 more sequels that they're like,
yeah,
oh, okay, well, we'll give you an award at the finish line, Jim.
Of course, absolutely.
I think it's also possible we need to consider the fact that Academy voters are looking at Avatar: The Way of Water, and while it is a massive technical step forward, it's not as grand an achievement as 2009's Avatar.
It's not as revolutionary.
Exactly. It's not as revolutionary as it, at least not on face value.
The first one was a top 2 contender.
Yeah, of course it was.
This is 9 on our ballots. So the director nomination, I actually think that it's impossible. Like, as weird as that sounds, the DGA miss. DGA.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's what hold me back.
Putting him out under the coffin. That to me said this isn't going to happen. I think Dune getting snubbed last year means that this, like, no way. I really don't see this happening. I think they don't care how big your movie is. They don't care if it has a big budget. They don't. The director's branch, getting into Best Director nomination is the hardest nomination to get with the Academy, because they are so weird and snobby, and there's a history of them snubbing epics in order for the more international films. And I think maybe I'm being a little too skeptical by taking out someone like McDonough or Spielberg here, but putting in James Cameron because there's a long gap between the last movie, that argument doesn't make any sense, because the last movie was a top 2 contender, and it's not like James Cameron is doing so well with the directors of the Academy. He has a win for Titanic, and he got nominated for Avatar, but Avatar as a movie that award season fell down so fast in terms of winning big that I can't see that movie getting more than like 5 or 6 nominations on its absolute best day, none of those being Best Director.
Yeah.
They're going to go for the international over the big one. Every year they do it.
Okay. I think we need to all give our 5s here so we can find out what the consensus is. So, just straight up, give me your 5, Tucker Hazel.
Spielberg, Daniels, McDonough, Field, and Cameron.
Okay. Sam?
I'm doing it. I'm committing to the bit.
Daniels, Field, Berger, Park, and Spielberg.
Okay. I have Daniels, McDonough, Spielberg, Field, Berger.
That's the 5 that we should agree on then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's true. Yes, absolutely.
Alrighty. Now, okay, we got to move on to the Screenplay Awards now, and I think that what we should do is what we just did there. Everyone give their 5 so we can have a pool of a consensus to work on. So I'll start. For adapted screenplay, I have Women Talking, The Whale, Glass Onion, Living, and She Said.
Ooh, interesting. I have 4 of those. I was first 4 as well, but I don't think She Said has the strength, and I think All Quiet on the Western Front's swell at the end is what's putting that at my number 5. And also having a international feature in this adapted screenplay lineup.
Sam?
I have 4 that you do. I overlap the uncommon. I do not think Glass Onion is going to get in. I think it'll be
really? Wow, that'll be interesting.
Because yes, it got PGA, but it missed BAFTA and it got 0 SAG nominations. Like I can't get that out of my head. So I think it'll be The Whale, Women Talking, Living, All Quiet, and She Said with Glass Onion 6.
Okay.
Even though Women Talking got no BAFTA nominations, it would just be very weird to me if that's still missed screenplay. Like I just think that'll still happen. But
now, does anyone off the top of their head know the WGA noms?
That comes out after the Oscars, weirdly.
Yeah,
so we don't.
Yeah, those haven't happened yet.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter.
Help us.
I do think that
Banshees is ineligible.
have they not
like
come out
so
yet?
many things are ineligible.
Yeah, it's not a fair comparison, IMO. Yeah.
Okay, sure, I see.
So what do we do here, folks?
But
Are we...
What's Glass Onion versus She Said?
Yeah.
I think that, for me, in terms of being a screenplay, Glass Onion, and with the first one making it into screenplay, feels the most right. That is one of the most written movies of last year. The complexity and the layered nature of all these characters, and Rian Johnson being like the clear creative voice behind that. She Said is a movie that came out and in another universe easily could have been one of our best picture contenders. It could have been up there in actress if it had been handled differently. But that is a movie that is a screenplay of people delivering lines very flatly. They are just saying things to get them to the next scene, to find another person, to get the phone call going on. But that for me doesn't sell itself as a screenplay, rather than just recapturing history in a very flat and just presenting it as it was way, which is why I like that movie. I liked She Said, but I do think that in terms of a impressive screenplay that has artistic vision behind it, Glass Onion is so much stronger. And I think that it's an easy 1 nomination for that to get, but the most deserved nomination that movie could get.
I think we should just...
Tucker, I don't disagree, because I have Glass Onion and She Said in my 5. Sam, say what you're going to say. Sorry.
I think we should just agree to keep All Quiet and Glass Onion in if we're just going to keep predictions.
Okay.
Because even though war movies do not get screenplay, All Quiet has enough scenes that don't involve war for me to think that it can happen. It's also based on a Best Picture winner, which is based on one of the most famous books ever written. So I can totally see that happening.
Alrighty. So it sounds like our 5 is Women Talking, The Whale, Glass Onion, Living, and All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the funny thing about Women Talking is okay, maybe it's losing steam for winning, but I think people are losing their fucking minds when they don't put Women Talking in their adapted screenplay nomination lineup. It's like, what? You're gonna put She Said in over Women Talking? Are you off your fucking rocker?
Some of us are, Tucker. Some of us are. Moving into original screenplay. Sam, why don't you start off? Giving us your 5.
So I think this is pretty easy. I think it'll be Everything Everywhere, Banshees, Tar, Fablemans, and Triangle of Sadness.
Yep.
I'm exact same.
After Sun, stop it. People need to stop it. Even if that movie got director at the BAFTAs and Best Film, it wouldn't get a screenplay nomination. It's not a screenplay movie. It's not that kind of movie. Triangle of Sadness makes so much more sense. I don't even know what 6th would be. Maybe Decision to Leave. Honestly, I would predict that over After Sun.
Because after you have these 5, it's like Elvis, After Sun, and Top Gun Maverick are like other original screenplays that from this year.
It's gonna be. I think it'll just be
weird category, but we all agree.
Yeah. But I think we got it. Those are 5.
This is a fabulous lineup.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah,
absolutely, 100%. And it's also a much stronger lineup than adapted screenplay.
Oh my god.
We're squeaking in things there. We're like, okay, I guessed Living. Okay, All Quiet on the Western Front's a war movie and it's about its text, but it's based on a book. But so comfortable. Banshees, Fablemans, Everything Everywhere, Tar, Triangle of Sadness, and even if Decision to Leave squeaks in or whatever, I'm like, I can sit in bed and like fan myself and eat grapes on a sun table, whatever. Glorious.
This is much
Okay.
better than last year's original screenplay lineup, which was
Yeah.
no bueno.
Where we heading next?
Let's dive below the line here, gentlemen, and start off with cinematography.
Do a swan
Yeah.
dive.
Here's what I have. Actually, Tucker, give me your 5 for cinematography.
Little old
Yeah,
me? All right.
please,
My
right this way.
cinematography, I think, is actually the hardest category to predict.
It's tough.
To be 100% honest.
It's tough.
And to me, it's.
And they're choosing such bad options.
Well, I was about to say just the opposite of that.
I would
that
agree, Tucker.
This year is so busy with phenomenal picks, much like last year was, that I'm really happy with anything they put in here. So I'm just pulling things out of my ass here.
Okay.
This is the one I put the least effort into. I was like, yeah, okay. Top Gun Maverick, I think, is really the only lock here, to be 100% honest. Avatar: The Way of Water, Babylon, The Batman, and All Quiet on the Western Front are my other picks. Why? Because I like those movies.
Sam, what about you?
That's it.
I have Top Gun. I have All Quiet. I have Empire of Light because that got ASC and BAFTA, and they love Deacons.
Yep.
And that could be a lone nominee.
Absolutely can.
I have the Batman because it keeps doing it. It keeps getting it. Everyone says doubt the Batman, and Greg Fraser just won.
He's the it
Come
boy.
on.
He's the cinematography it boy.
He's the cinematographer who is the it boy. And fifth is hard because as tempting as it is to nominate Avatar, you watch Avatar, of course that gets cinematography. It hasn't gotten anything.
Sad.
Yeah.
So I'm putting Elvis because
Ooh, I'd love that.
as much as I don't want to do this, as much as there are so many better options than this, it just feels like something that
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, you look a couple years ago and see that they put in both Cold War and Never Look Away for cinematography, and that was like, Jesus fuck, like, you guys know what you're doing. But this year, none of these cinematography branches know what they're doing, so they're going to nominate something like Elvis, and I'm not going to be able to handle it.
The track record for the ASC and the Oscars is they're like 4 out of 5 every year. There's only one... Sometimes 5 out of 5. And so here's what I have. I'll just say mine. I have Top Gun Maverick. I have Empire of Light. I have Elvis, and I have the Batman because those are all ASC nominations right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went with Avatar, and it's really just like the opposite of what I was saying earlier when we were talking about Cameron and director. I'm like, I don't know. I have this gut feeling that the Academy will revive Avatar just because they love Cameron. They love what it did for Hollywood. They love big Hollywood, big budget films. And I put Avatar in cinematography, even though Bardo got that other ASC nomination.
Yeah.
All Quiet on the Western Front is obviously very strong in a lot of categories.
Everything Everywhere and Banshees are also somewhere in there as well. Also great fucking picks. Good lord. Now, I think that we all share 3.
Why All Quiet would
Yeah. We all share 3.
Like, why would they not nominate All Quiet here? We know that they're going to nominate that for like every technical. Why not here?
Well, here's the thing. Tucker and I both have Avatar. You and Tucker both have All Quiet on the Western Front, correct?
Yeah. And the two of you have Empire of Light, which I am Actually, I'm changing it. I'm changing my Babylon to Empire of Light, making that our 4th one that we share. Meaning that we now have to choose between Avatar and All Quiet on the Western Front.
And
I'm in stubborn. It's not going to be Avatar. They nominate foreign films here. They don't nominate blockbusters all the time. And Avatar missing BAFTA long list and missing ASC.
That is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That for Avatar, a movie that won all of these things, the first one. It's just like nobody. It's the thing is, it's because the cinematography of this movie is the same as the cinematography in the first movie, and.
Well, I'm not sure if I agree with that though, because a lot of the narrative about
they don't think that it's something completely different.
I'm not sure that's necessarily true though, because the biggest thing about the text for After the Way of Water is that they had to do new camera techniques and figure out new things to film things underwater, and that's a lot of this movie, and that's what makes it so impressive and distinct from that first one. So we're talking about like innovation in cinematography. Yeah, it's not blowing things out of the water like the first one was, but it is doing something a lot more innovative than most movies do with their cinematography, which is like inventing new ways to use cameras and capture techniques underwater. And that gives, I think, enough of a strong narrative for people who know cinematography. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they changed the way that we're going to be using cameras going into the future if we want to capture underwater techniques. But that, I don't know. I agree with you, obviously, that All Quiet on the Western Front is an incredibly strong contender, but Avatar, I don't know. There's something about it. There's something about that Cameron boy, that Jimmy.
For cinematography...
Have either of you seen All Quiet?
No, we haven't yet, no. But I still have it in mind.
Okay, then come on.
Yeah,
like, you haven't seen the movie. This movie should win out of these, like, contenders that we're all mentioning. I think it's weird that we'd be predicting All Quiet to get nominated for everything, but miss this.
Sam,
what are we putting this up against?
Whatever you guys do, I'm keeping it in mind. I have it at number 2.
We need to decide if we want to put Avatar or All Quiet in there. And honestly, I have Avatar at my number 5 slot. I think it's the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I honestly, if we're doing numbers, if we're doing safe predictions that are based on things more than vibes, I'll go All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah. I think that's a solid 5. I'm absolutely happy with any of that. Even if we get somehow a Banshee's like upset, I'm like, hey, why not? That movie has great cinematography. Lots of great options here. Oh my god.
Yeah. Alrighty. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's move down the list a little bit further to costume design.
Why not? Might as well.
I'll share my 5 here.
This is a pretty easy one, to be honest.
I have Babylon. I have Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I have Elvis. I have Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And I have The Woman King.
5 for 5.
Yeah.
Same 5.
All right.
Oh my god, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris being an Oscar nominee is so lovely. That movie's amazing, and I hope that happens. Really
do you guys want to talk about like the possibility of like a corsage? That's period costumes, but it has no precursors up until this point.
That would get in over The Woman King, I would say.
Probably. Especially because, and I know this is kind of ridiculous, especially because period pieces often have similar kinds of visual style. Black Panther Wakanda Forever's Wakandan African garb does somewhat parallel the Woman King's costuming, but both are obviously equally likely to do it. We all have them in our 5, but I think you're right that the Woman King would be knocked out, especially because Elvis is very distinct in its costumes. Babylon, very distinct in its era of costumes. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris is nothing like any of these movies. And Black Panther with Ruth E. Carter, I think is up there for winning, and so obviously that's not going to happen. And obviously they had to come up with fucking with the costumes for Talocan as well.
Yeah. No, these are all, of course, like either period films or sci-fi films, essentially, and they don't typically go for contemporary costuming. But Glass Onion has gotten in
still in
at a Critics' Choice and Costume Designers Guild as well.
They're not going to do it. Well, Costume Designers Guild
but it did get a nomination for like contemporary costuming. But if you're looking at the Academy, they like the pretty dresses, the pretty old dresses.
Yeah, it's not going to be that.
Okay.
And the Fabelmans?
No.
Shifting back into gear here a little bit, we'll talk about editing right now.
Okay, all right.
Sam, you reacted to this one, so I'm gonna have you go first. Give me your 5.
This is tough. So Top Gun, Everything Everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Elvis.
Yes, absolutely a lot.
Baz Luhrmann has so much fucking editing in his movies, and they gave it to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes.
So
it must.
Evidently, like, that's going to happen. They always nominate a movie that's just, like, a big contender, even if it doesn't have showy editing.
True.
And I think that's
Same
Banshees.
Here. Yeah.
I think Banshees is going to be in, because they like, nominated Promising Young Woman. They nominated The Power of the Dog. Like, this feels like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Fifth is very tough, because I see some people saying Babylon is going to happen, but even though that has very showy editing, I don't think they would nominate it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's enough of a contender. I don't think they'd put in something that it just feels weird.
Yeah.
Tar. I've
That'd be interesting.
bounced back and forth with Tar, and I rewatched it yesterday, and they do not nominate movies with long takes. And that movie, every scene is like one take, at least for the first half. I don't think they would do that. So I'm going to just put All Quiet at 5th to keep going with this technical explosion that it's seemingly going to have.
Yeah.
Because someone told me that remakes don't get nominated for editing, like they don't nominate remakes in editing, but that's a weird statistic that I don't think people pay attention to.
Yeah,
the long take it makes more sense to me, which is why I don't see Tar really happening. Avatar, on its best day, happens here.
Yeah.
But because editing, I think, is in a way the biggest technical category in terms of like correspondence with Best Picture, I don't think they're going to do that. I think All Quiet, just in my mind, makes the most sense. But
I want to talk about Babylon for a second here, because I think that it's certainly a possibility, but I don't have it in my 5. And I think what it comes down to determining and talking about whether it's going to be in here is editor's branch. You need 63 first place votes to get a nomination here. And the question is, are there 63 editors in this branch who are willing to love Babylon's editing to the extent that they put it at number 1? Because it's very showy, and it could be like this year's Don't Look Up, for example. But also Elvis might be this year's showy Don't Look Up editing nomination. Yeah. So...
Well, yeah, but then again, so technically is Everything Everywhere All at Once in terms of how showy the editing is. Yeah. I think that for me, Tar is in the same slot for Banshees. And interesting thing about Banshees is you saying that about Babylon. I think absolutely there are more editors that are impressed by the editing of Babylon than there are for Banshees of Inisherin, which is a movie that is amazing, but it's about its performances, it's about the environments that they're filming, it's about the script and the jokes that these guys are landing, and not the editing of Banshees of Inisherin. And Tar definitely has more interesting editing, even though I agree that in terms of a long take nature, that makes it less likely, but it is a more interestingly edited movie than Banshees is. I'm not saying that if I picked it, I would have Tar above Banshees, but I still am predicting Banshees. My 5, I don't even think we got to...
Oh, sorry, my mistake, Tucker.
But I think it's because we shared all of them, is Everything Everywhere, Top Gun, Elvis, All Quiet, and Banshees.
Oh, okay, sure. The thing is, though, Babylon is more likely in sound than Banshees is, or not necessarily.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But then again, Promising Young Woman got an editing nomination. And
they do give credence to editing in like a comedy sort of film. They do give credence to that quite a bit.
Yeah, they sometimes just do it for a movie they like.
Yeah. Which doesn't make any fucking sense, but whatever.
It doesn't. It's just a big contender. I mean, obviously, yes, but I think it'll be in. The Fabelmans.
Yeah,
nope.
But it has scenes that are all about editing, Sam.
Nobody cares.
Oh, jeez. Okay, let's move on over to sound, since we were in editing, and these tend to overlap. And Tucker, since I skipped over you last time, as an apology, give me your 5 for sound.
That makes me feel so much better.
I'm glad it does.
I'm mad at you, but no, I'm not. Best sound: Top Gun, Maverick, Avatar: The Way of Water, All Quiet on the Western Front, Elvis, and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
Same.
Okay.
Okay, we have two 5 for 5s. Where do you dissent, Tanner? It sounds like you did.
So you had Top Gun, you had Elvis, you had All Quiet on the Western Front, and I, in my bottom 2, have Tar and Avatar.
I have Avatar.
Oh, do you? Okay. Oh,
I have Avatar.
We only have 1 point of difference there.
I think
Tar.
I think Tar could happen, but I'm just gonna keep Everything Everywhere.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Tar is I feel like that's just like it's probably one of the safest movies of the year in terms of like, it's getting into some of these categories, but I think it's really hard for Tar to overperform. It getting score at Globes or whatever and like getting like a couple weird nominations. I don't think that's
eligible for score.
Well, true. We're not talking about that, but
I think that's part of it, though.
But I do think that it's harder for Tar to overperform versus Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a movie that has stayed very high, but has even trended sort of upwards in terms of, oh, this is going to get maybe more text than we thought. This is actually succeeding in more places than we thought it would. And sound and editing going hand in hand, and Everything Ever All at Once being a pretty clear lock for editing, I think makes it pretty safe for sound.
And I'm
Tar is not on the short list.
Oh, it's not on
Tar's
the sound short list. Okay, well, I am but a fool then. But here's another thing I'll throw out because I'm going to continue to dissent here. The Batman.
That would be great.
Yes. It had the same number of Motion Picture Sound Editor Guild noms that Everything Everywhere All at Once does.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay,
yeah.
I could see it.
Yeah, but also, similar to Tar, it's way harder for the Batman to overperform in the Oscars than Everything Everywhere All at Once is. And if we're not even comfortable with the Batman, with Greg Fraser getting cinematography or getting film editing, which again is very correlative to best sound, I think it's certainly possible, and it would be very cool. That movie has great sound design. And we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. The best sound design of the year was Jordan Peele's Nope, and it is a fucking crime. This is, like, I don't get passionate about, like, snubs very often in award season. There's a couple, like, I got upset about Little Women missing costume design, or production design. And this year for me, it's that Nope is not getting into best sound. What's wrong with you? Did you watch that movie in theaters? That has the craziest fucking sound design I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I've never walked out of a movie and thought, oh my god, the sound design was amazing for that. Except for Nope. We talked about it in our fucking review on Back Lot Banter. Jesus Christ. Oh my god.
Anyway, so it sounds like for sound, I'm outvoted, and Everything Everywhere All at Once is getting in there, and not Tar. So, fair point. Fair enough. And I don't think it's unlikely.
It's definitely not Tar.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Can't be Tar.
Yeah, well, I added it in there. I'm a fool. Let's see here. Tucker, you brought up production design and the act of missing it, so we'll go to that next.
Sure.
Sam, production design noms. Give me them. Lay them on me.
Babylon.
Yep.
Elvis. Black Panther.
Okay.
All Quiet on the Western Front. And Avatar, The Way of Water.
Okay.
5 for 5 for me as well. Tanner, where do you dissent? Once again.
No Black Panther. I have the Batman in here. It got in.
That would be really interesting.
Both that and Black Panther did get an Art Directors Guild nomination, but the Batman got BAFTA, and that's what.
Yeah.
BAFTAs hate Black Panther so much they didn't nominate the first movie for anything, and the first one won production.
Okay, fair point. So, but I just don't know if I'm 100% sold on that because Marvel films seem to be missing out in the tech categories. We'll get to it when we get to VFX, I think especially. And I think that the Batman was such an interesting a visual feast, really.
Coolest Gotham
exactly.
Ever. Coolest Gotham
and
ever.
Has I think if the Academy is comparing these two superhero films, one of them looks better. One of them has a more interesting design and aesthetic about it. And they already awarded the first did they give this to Black Panther in 2018?
That's what we said, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I got it.
But this has different sets than that movie did. So
also I think
Avatar. Black Panther's really interesting. Avatar, what, we all agree on that?
No, I'm saying it's similar to Avatar, and they're going to give it to Avatar, but potentially if they want to mix it up a little bit, they want to go with the Batman.
Yeah.
I would actually think that if the Batman gets in, it's over Avatar and not Black Panther. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Black Panther for me is the one that I'm least confident about because, well, obviously the world design of Wakanda is fantastic, and I think they did a great job creating Talokan and expanding the world of Wakanda. I don't think that the production design, especially because it's not as combined as well with visual effects as that first one was. I mean, the sweeping shots of Wakanda in that first movie are part of the reason why that world feels so interesting, but they don't use those as much in Wakanda Forever because the visual effects budget is obviously so much, maybe it's so much lower, I don't really know, but the visual effects, in my opinion, look worse in Wakanda Forever, which is why I'm especially not going to have it in my predictions for VFX. And I think that's very important here. Like, I remember a couple of the sets for Wakanda Forever, and I think what's there is good, but the Batman, even though I'm not predicting the Batman, I think it'd be a much better pick than Wakanda Forever. And Avatar The Way of Water, I think we're talking about somehow the production design of Avatar The Way of Water the last few days with some friends. Like, that movie creates a more believable and interesting world through its production design than I would say even the first Avatar did. The way that they designed these houses of the Reef Kingdom and the bouncy bridges that they walk on is something that instantly sticks out in my mind in terms of they designed a new kind of architecture. Oh my god, that's so impressive. And it's also kind of similar for Gotham because that feels so distinct. But even though there's a new world being designed in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, it doesn't shine as well as Avatar does because the visual effects in that movie are nowhere near the quality of Avatar.
And I also think, and again, I mentioned this when we'll talk about VFX. I think we're in an era where the Academy is maybe shunning Marvel for their CGI a little bit for the VFX work, and that is, of course, directly tied in with the production design for Avatar and Black Panther. So I just got to look at that and be like, Avatar does very similar things to Black Panther, creating an underwater world, etc., and it's so much better and so much stronger.
So much better, oh my god.
So, but at the end of the day, I'm outvoted because you guys both have Black Panther in there.
Yeah. I still think that they're going to recognize it. I think that it's a continuation of what the first Black Panther did for the world of Wakanda. It is probably the most iconic, new sci-fi world of the last 10 years, and it still is very impressive in Wakanda Forever. So I think that's a perfectly fine nomination, and I think it's going to
Okay. Makeup and hairstyling. Now let me give you my 5 for makeup and hairstyling here. I have the Whale. I have Elvis. I have the Batman. I think that's a strong top 3 there. I don't think anybody would contest with those.
I think there's a strong 4.
I have All Quiet on the Western Front.
That's the 4.
Yep. And this 5, I don't know what you guys are thinking about this 5. I have Amsterdam.
Yeah, that is getting in places.
Considered it, but I have Blonde.
Blonde's also strong.
Yeah, Blonde is... Yeah. It is also strong. I think that for me, and I think for maybe other people, maybe I'm just projecting, but Blonde, the makeup and hairstyling is basically just the one makeup and hairstyling of
Joker.
Sure. Oh no, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. But for me, for my number 5, I have Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I think that the makeup and hairstyling of the combining that with the costumes and having the like the funeral look that Shuri has and stuff, that is, I think, a makeup and hairstyling thing for me.
Sam,
but,
what do you have?
I'm willing to settle for Amsterdam.
Okay.
I'll move to Amsterdam. Sure.
Amsterdam here because that makes sense. Actually.
And I just think that the makeup and hair, especially the makeup, is much more showy than it is in Blonde. We're talking about showiness. We're doing scars. We're doing Christian Bale's fake eye. We're doing all these things. And they're already giving it to you made this actor look like a famous person. So
true. That is true.
Okay, so we're doing Amsterdam at 5? Okay.
Yep, that's fine by me. Believe it or not, I'm not particularly passionate about the makeup and hairstyling category at the Academy Awards.
Let's get musical here, gentlemen, shall we? I want to talk about best score first. I want to hear from Tucker Hazel first.
Here's a list that I just didn't even adventure on because I feel like what people are talking about is probably true. Babylon, Women Talking, Banshees, Fabelmans, Pinocchio. Does anyone dissent?
You said Babylon, Fabelmans, Women Talking, Pinocchio, Banshees. That's my order, but yes, we all have the same 5 here, it seems like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope the Fabelmans doesn't get nominated, though, because...
Yeah, because really the only thing that I was going for that is John Williams is famous, and he has done scores that are good, but no one's humming the Fabelmans theme. The thing you love about John Williams is he's created probably the widest variety of iconic film themes of all time. The Fabelmans doesn't have that, and I believe from what I know, it is also an incredibly short score, which makes the outweighing degree of it's John Williams so insane.
Narrative nomination.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think 6 is actually The Woman King.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Okay. Not even the Batman you wouldn't throw in there at 6?
I would say that
that'd be
The
so
Woman
good. But the crazy thing about Batman is, I would say, other than Babylon Women Talking, that is probably the score that is stuck with people, at least from what I know, the most. Is that Batman theme is amazing, and it really goes with everything that movie has going for it. So that is one that I really, really hope slides into one of these bottom slots because...
Well, it won't because it's not on the short list. So
No!
sorry.
No!
God
Yeah.
damn it.
I think Black Panther is possible too. I think
Sure.
All Quiet has an amazing score. There's like an iconic like you'll see when you see it.
Yeah.
But it's not like very dynamic, but it would make sense to get in because more movies get score.
Okay. So, I mean, we have the same 5 here.
Oh, we all agree.
So let's move on to song. Sam, sing me a song of your song nominees.
So, Natu is winning, hopefully.
God.
I'm going to say Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick, Lift Me Up from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Ciao Papa from Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and as much as nobody wants this, applause from Tell It Like a Woman.
Yeah, that's...
If you think you can go against Diane Warren in this category, you thought wrong. She gets nominated
Not even
every
Taylor
year.
Swift can unseat Diane Warren. I mean, I don't think so either. I have that 5, but like Taylor Swift is also getting nominated at places for Where the Crawdads Sing.
Yeah, and of course she did because Beyonce did for that song from The Lion King, and Taylor Swift also did for that song from Cats. That doesn't mean they don't care about the pop divas, and we already have 2 in here.
Yeah.
So
it's
interesting. When I was looking at this, when I was looking at the Gold Derby list of like what is on Gold Derby ranked to be the highest most likely, I was like, yeah, okay, I see you, Diane Warren, and you're probably right, but I'm just going to dissent for no reason, and it's not going to change our actual list. But Stand Up from Till. That's my 5th slot. Why not? Because, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Because there's already a song called Lift Me Up getting in. They can't do both. That's ridiculous.
And they're already in the last 5 years, they've nominated 3 songs called Stand Up.
Is that true?
Yeah. It's a very popular...
Oh my god. And that's a great statistic. That's in Till's favor.
Tucker, you're so right. Oh god.
They're trying to get as many songs called Stand Up to be nominated. That's the goal.
Now let's go on to.
Okay, when we get there though, can I say international first?
Oh sure, yeah. You want to do international first? Here we go. Well, next, let's do it right now.
Wait, when we get there.
I see. Okay, well, I think we're just about done with our below the line tech stuff because we have to talk about best visual effects. And here's what I have. I have Avatar: The Way of Water. Surprise, surprise. I have Top Gun: Maverick. I have The Batman. I have All Quiet on the Western Front. And I am going to go with 13 Lives.
Same. Me too.
Yeah. No, I have Nope on my visual effects. That is very, very much a Hope diction, but you telling me that I can like scratch that and say that 13 Lives is an Oscar-nominated film? Woo, doggy dog! You definitely know that I'm doing that.
Okay. Because
I love how we agree on that. That's nice.
Well, yeah, no, it is interesting because this is not a particularly hard category to predict because a couple of these are pretty solid lock, but there are a number of other movies that are in the conversation, and like Jurassic World Dominion is not a good movie, but it has amazing visual effects. Though I do know from listening to a few conversations, they didn't nominate Jurassic World or Fallen Kingdom, and those movies also had great visual effects. So I don't know why they would swing for it on this one, but it wouldn't be undeserved if it got in, even though that movie sucked.
I think that they do try to go for a supporting visual effects nominee every year. And that is 13 Lives. It got a Visual Effects Society nomination, and hearing talk around town from the people in the industry, it did very well and had a very good showcase at the VFX bake-offs, which is important, and it really enlightened a lot of Academy voters, most likely, to the fact that the visual effects are so well implemented here that you can't see them. They're not obvious. Yeah. That's how good they are.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I'm in the same boat. Frankly, I was like, I didn't even realize that there was that many special effects used in 13 Lives.
Like 1917, I didn't realize how many visual effects there were in 1917. That has seamless visual effects, and it still got in.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good 5.
Sounds good. It's rock and roll, folks. Now since it was requested, Sam, can you please give us your 5 picks for Best International Feature Film?
I just want to say first that this is the first year
do a
where
prediction for this.
I watched all 15 films on the
Wow.
shortlist for international film. I will continue to do that until I die. I firmly believe that this is the best category at the Oscars usually. So, Adoy, All Quiet on the Western Front, Decision to Leave, Argentina, 1985. Now here's where it gets interesting. So, every year, there's one movie made by a well-known director that premieres at festivals that everyone thinks it's going to get nominated, and it doesn't. Last year, it was A Hero. This year, it's Close. Because Close is the fucking BAFTA nomination, and that is a very European movie, and it shows that it doesn't have the passion. And I am putting The Quiet Girl in because that has a really interesting fan base. I've seen several people say that's the best movie of the year.
Wow.
And that got adapted screenplay at the BAFTAs. For my 5th slot, they always do a wonky one.
Yeah.
And this year, I'm going to predict Joyland because I really love that movie. That's the best one on the short list, by the way. And every time they get a presenter to present the Oscar nominations, and that presenter has a correlation with one of the nominees, possible nominees, that nominee always happens. In song, the song from Ted got nominated the year Seth MacFarlane presented the nominee. 2 years ago, The White Tiger got an adapted screenplay nomination. Who was presenting the nominees?
I don't remember.
Oh my god. Oh, I can't remember her name, but I can't remember her name, but I remember watching them. Who was it?
So it was Priyana Chopra, and Nick Jonas, and she has connections to that movie. Ramin and her, and so it's like Riz Ahmed is attached to Joyland. So I feel like they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
If not, this is just me being weird. But Joyland is such a passion pick too. Like, it's so underdog. It's overcome so many things. It has such a narrative, and again, it's like the best one there. I don't know why they would nominate Bardo or something.
I mean,
like
the argument there is, and my argument, because I have Bardo in mine, is that it has Iñárritu, and Sam, that's a far less
director name doesn't.
It's
matter
a far
here.
less interesting argument than what you just gave. So I can be convinced out of it. I have it at number 4, and for me personally, only ever put The Quiet Girl in after BAFTA nominations came out. But speaking of BAFTA nominations, we talked about it a little bit before in a different category, but Corsage, mayhaps, also got a BAFTA nom for foreign language film. Not impossible, but Tucker, what do you have to break us up here?
Have you seen that movie?
What's that?
Have either of you seen
I've
Corsage?
seen Corsage.
Oh, Tanner saw it, yeah.
I think that movie is boring as hell.
I haven't seen The Quiet Girl, so I can't say how they compare on an entertainment value level.
I'm going to stick with Joyland because I love it so much, and because of the Riz Ahmed thing.
Well, here's the thing. I just pulling out of my ass have the 4 that you mentioned, but I'm putting Close over Joyland. Why? Who the hell knows? But I think that I trust you on this one enough to say I'll go with that.
Okay.
I also think like there are so many things that are higher than Bardo here. Bardo has not gotten anything. Nobody likes it. Europeans especially fucking hate Bardo. I mean, the only people who like that movie are Mexicans.
Yeah.
So it really, it's such a bad film. It's the worst one on the short list. And it's only because it has a big name that people are predicting it. There's no other reason outside of it. And as I just said, with A Hero getting snubbed, so many international movies get snubbed from the short list that are like big, and that's going to happen. Like, I just don't see Bardo happening. It didn't happen anywhere.
Critics' Choice,
and it's also terrible. I think it has a better chance of getting a cinematography nomination than it does an international.
Fair point.
Yeah, and that would be really interesting.
Okay,
yeah.
So Bardo not in our 5.
Let's just go with
and Joyland is. Why not? Sure, why not?
If I'm wrong on this, you guys can be mad at me. But
I'm already mad at you, so
yeah,
just generally.
I've been microdosing angry at Sam for the last few weeks.
No, we got the last two here. Let's get documentary out of the way first, so we can end on a category where at least some of us seem to know what we're talking about. Because I've seen one of the films that I'm predicting to be in Best Documentary, and my five are All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Fire of Love, Moon Age Daydream, Navalny, and All That Breathes. Not a super interesting list, but also ones that I could be wrong on.
Yeah, I'm doing that too.
I'm doing that too, but they always have a snub here.
I think it's
just
Navalny.
Who knows what that is.
Bless you.
If they snub All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, I am going to slit somebody's throat. Because that is one of the best movies of ever. That is one of the best movies ever made. I don't know why. It's just like, but this one, I actually disagree that Navalny would be the one to get snubbed because it's about.
That's probably
going
to win, I would say.
And it's relevant to our time.
Oh, really?
And that's what I think. Remember Icarus and Faces Places? It's the same thing. Navalny and All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. And I'm gonna kill somebody after All the Beauty and the Bloodshed doesn't win. If I don't kill somebody.
Sure.
Because oh my god, that movie's so fucking. That movie. I'm sorry. I really hate the documentary branch sometimes because they snub the best one and the front runner so often. But I'm not fucking playing this year. If they snub All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, like.
Well, here's the thing. You know,
I've had it.
Sometimes they don't like to do things that are all archive footage. You know, they want a bit more directorly documentarian input there. And we have two, Fire of Love and Moon Age Daydream, that are both all archive footage films.
I think Fire of Love would be the.
You think so?
I agree.
But Moon Age Daydream is a bit. It's weirder, but it also got shortlisted in things that documentaries typically do not get shortlisted for at the Oscars.
Well, I think what's interesting about Moon Age Daydream and what was interesting about Flea last year is both these movies are kind of expanding what the idea of what a documentary can be, and I think that with David Bowie being a figure that's pretty revered and having a film that does something interesting with the possibility of documentary, I think Fire of Love is more easy to snub there because I like that movie a good amount, but it is just a nature documentary again, and what are you really gonna do with that? The fact that Jackass Forever isn't in here though is really sad.
Or Jackass 4.5 for that matter.
True.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds like we have a documentary. Oh, I do want to throw out The Descendant is from the Obama family production company, and they won for American Factory in 2019. So.
And Crip Camp.
Oh, true. Yeah, good point. So.
Yep.
Oh, maybe we should. I don't know. I don't care.
Okay.
Enough.
Why not?
But I do care enough about All the Beauty and the Bloodshed.
Obviously.
Clearly. And to round it out here, Best Animated Feature Film. And Sam, round us out here. Give us your 5 for Best Animated Feature.
Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell, Red, Boosts, and Gwendolyn Wild?
I guess so.
Yeah,
that's what I have. I don't know. People keep.
This is a very good lineup.
It is. People are saying. The streets are saying, of course, Cartoon Saloon has never missed. You know, they've literally never missed a nomination here. But who knows what My Father's Dragon is? Who knows what that is? Yeah.
I don't.
I didn't even know what Cartoon Saloon is.
I mean, you also have, like, G-Kids often gets nominated, and Inuo got the Golden Globe, so...
Yeah, certainly possible. Certainly possible. Obviously, Wendell Wild's the one on our list that is not a lock, because the other ones are getting in everywhere, and are all fantastic movies. So, frankly, I'm a lot happier with this list, because it's, for one of the first times, like, mostly stuff I've seen, like, usually they do 2 or 3 that are, like, a little bit weird, and that's fun, but I think that it shows a really interesting diversity of, hey, guess what? Pixar and Disney aren't just dominating. And I think it's really nice. And also, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On getting in at the Oscars is so much fun. God, I love that.
I mean, what happened this year is that every year, really, Disney, which is in charge of Pixar, obviously, Disney spends all of their most, if not all of their Oscar campaign money on the animated category, because usually they have that winning. But because Pinocchio is just so undeniable, and other than that, Turning Red is probably the only Disney movie to get in, Disney has used all of its campaign money for Angela Bassett. And that's clearly worked, because they don't need to pay attention to the animated category, because obviously Guillermo's winning.
Better luck next time. But yeah, I think...
But look how far that took Angela.
Can I also say, rip to the bad guys, did not get that Annie nomination, so they just didn't like that one, and it dropped out.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Robbed.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to Legend Hank.
That's true. That's so true. But there you have it, folks. Those are our Oscar nomination predictions. A good bunch to pick through there, and I'm sure, of course, none of us are going to deny that there will be surprises on Tuesday morning.
Yep.
But that's what makes it fun. That's why we do this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Unless it's all the beauty and the bloodshed missing.
Then that's not why we do this, and we will quit if that happens. But at the end of the day, thank you two for joining me here, and thank you for watching this marathon of predictions, dear viewer. We'll have plenty more Oscars coverage, and of course we're starting up our reviews of the nominees very soon. We're recording the first conversation the day the nominees come out. That's how dedicated we are. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.